York City, one of the biggest cities in the East Coast in the United States. And it also has a lot of stages in fighting games based on many locales and areas throughout the entire history that we have all played fighting games. But for today's video, I wanted to try something a little bit, to start on a good progressive note for the new year. And I essentially just compiled my top favorite 5 New York-based stages throughout the many fighting game series I played. So this means one each per series, and I'm going to be perfectly honest here, there's been a lot of stages that I probably may have missed out or may have not played, so please don't be too disappointed on the list that I'm basically putting here. This is just basically my personal preference or my personal top 5. Some that might surprise you and some that you might go, oh, okay, I kind of see where you're going from. And lastly, I just want you to keep in mind that I will be diving back into this specific topic, not only with one particular fighting game series, but entirely with others as well. So with that, let's get started with the top 5 New York-based stages throughout fighting games. So, number 5 of the New York-based stages of all the fighting games first goes to Jackie's Stage in Virtua Fighter 5. Alright, so I'm going to basically just make it straight here. My favorite variant, technically, of this stage is actually Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown. Because later down the line when Ultimate Showdown was released, a couple of added details was given to this stage entirely. The previous version, which you definitely see from VF5, VF5R, and then VF5 Final Showdown, are really good. But with a little bit more of a graphical update, and of course a couple of extra added details, really makes this the most definitive and not the best version of Jackie's Stage in Virtua Fighter 5. So in the middle, you basically see what appears to be a blue target in the middle. Now, in this side, you'll notice the logo that says Showdown that is very much reminiscent of Jet Set Radio. And also, you'll notice something that says, go ahead and I got no time for you. These are lines that Jackie says whenever he basically fights and wins against an opponent. Now, what's also interesting that from the left side, well, not here, is that you'll notice like there's a truck, a couple of people watching the fight as you're inside of a steel cage arena or area that you fight against Jackie if you're playing against arcade mode or if you happen to select this stage. What's also very interesting is that you also see a bunch of cars passing around, and from the looks of it, it looks like this is somewhat a bit located nearby to Times Square. Or rather, this is something that is inspired by Times Square in New York City. And my favorite variant of the theme, because there's various, considering that Virtua Fighter 5 has multiple versions throughout from the very first vanilla all the way up to, well, Ultimate Showdown, is perhaps the vanilla version of the Jackie stage, the very first one for vanilla Virtua Fighter 5. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of details. There's like a little shark, like a shark center, which probably looks like a theater. And then here it says the word Dreamway and East 77th Street. What's interesting is that this is completely a bit inaccurate because despite that this area looks very much like Times Square, it also happens to be labeling the street on a much different area. And as I mentioned, there's also a little small thing that's basically reminiscent of Jet Set Radio, but instead it says Super Hard or Super Hand. I can't quite make it out because the gates are in the way, but yeah, this is a really cool stage. Definitely worthy of top 5. Throughout the Tekken series, there's been a lot of great stages. From the first trilogy, then the next one, then 7, and now 8. But Urban Square for Tekken 8 is probably one of my favorite stages that, honestly, next to a couple of others, really does make this have a unique personality going towards it. So Urban Square has a bunch of interesting details. Azucena with Harvard Coffee being played at an advertisement with Smith Coffee, who is owned by Leroy Smith, a statue of Leroy in the middle, which behind that is an advertisement for Violet Systems with Combat, which I'm kind of wondering if we'll ever get anything like Mokujin or Combat one of these days. But anyway, Going forward, then we see the big staircase that is also located in Times Square, where you basically just purchase tickets to Broadway shows, a globe with the G Corp symbol on it, and a bus stop that is very eerily close to the MTA bus stops that you see all around in New York. I gotta say, Tekken has always basically been really great with a lot of stages, and the fact that this is eerily close to Times Square, if not an almost perfect recreation out of it, is really, really outstanding. There is technically another fighting game that technically has a Times Square stage that is a little bit more different, but it kind of does a little bit more of a transition, is Guilty Gear Strive. But I didn't play much of that game or that stage to kind of just put it as a favorite. And if you basically make it to round three, it'll eventually go into a wintry, snowy type vibe going on because it'll basically be start snowing and most of the bystanders are just no longer present there. Overall, pretty good stage. The King of Fighters series has a lot of great stages, but in the case of KOF 2002 Unlimited Match, not to be confused with KOF 2002 Vanilla Mexico Edition, there's a lot of cameos in many of the stages it has. But let's just get started with this. There's a lot of cameos from Art of Fighting, Fatal Fury, Dominated Mind, and of course some other characters that didn't quite make the cut in the game as well. So in the right corner, you see Jack Turner basically just chucking and just laughing right there. Then you see the what appears to be the World of Astoria Hotel. Then a band that's basically playing in the middle with the logo of KOF 2002 Unlimited Match. And you also see John Crowley, White from Fatal Fury, Ryobout Dominated Mind, and of course two of the US team members. I gotta say, I really do like this one, mostly because it accompanies rather the theme Destiny really well, and pretty much, again, I just like the street vibe out of it. It's just a really simple but cool stage. Let me be straight. Onslaught stage in Marvel vs. Capcom 1 is probably one of the most iconic stages because not only do you have to fight against Onslaught in this epic showdown where you see parts of Manhattan literally being on fire, a beautiful skyline, well, from left to right, there's a satellite right here in the corner, and do I forget to mention you have to fight freaking Onslaught where if you basically fail, all of Manhattan is doomed. I gotta say, for a fighting game stage that's super simplistic and you're fighting against a X-Men Omega level mutant type boss, you've gotta pretty much admit, this is a really epic stage considering what's at stake here. And again, you're fighting Onslaught to save the world. So, yeah. But, as disappointing this may sound, this is my second favorite New York based stage. So what's number one? Yeah, you probably didn't expect this to be number one, did you? So, while there's a lot of New York-based stages in the Street Fighter series, this one in particular stands out to me. Not only is this stage located in, well, in the heart of Harlem, but rather this one kind of definitely carries a, well, very interesting aesthetic that not only is it a Christmas wintry type of vibe, but rather it just carries the New York essential, well, I guess theme all pretty well. First of all, there's a Christmas tree in the very first round. Then later on, as you progress to the next round, you see these two guys watching in the background. The Christmas tree is positioned right in the deep in the back, all the way in the back in the middle. You see more of the city. You see a homeless guy. You see like a lot of things that truly kind of carry the whole New York street fighting vibe. And honestly, Street Fighter 3, or rather the era, carries a lot of stages that truly do carry the street vibe of everything. But when I'm thinking of New York in general, considering a majority of fighting games have a lot of these, I honestly think of this stage more than anything. A close second was literally the Third Strike stages for Ken and Alex, but to me personally, this one is just the best.
You win.
And with that, we conclude my top 5 New York based stages throughout fighting games. So I know that this is more of a personal video, but the idea of like looking into this kind of, well, this theming with New York stages has got me thinking that, well, now that I think about it, there's been a lot of fighting games that seem to kind of carry the whole New York vibe. So, tune in next time as I discuss more New York based stages, but specifically with the series known as Street Fighter. And yes, I'm going to be going to every single one of them and basically see how each of them fare and put my personal perspective out of it. But for now, I must get going to basically attend to get to work on that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!